I was never in the business, but I was a slut. So I'm going to read you this little piece. It's called Random 80's Rock Dude. I think some of you might relate. Hello again, Random 80's Rock Dude. It's so good to see you after all this time, if only through my computer. I know that calling you Random 80's Rock Dude is a bit unfair. You were more than that. But I am the ruler of this keyboard queendom, and therefore possess the power necessary to assign names and blame according to feminine whim and most decidedly selective memory. I was unsure if it was you at first, so before sending this message, I dug around on your wife's MySpace page to find an old photo of you for positive ID. She and your child are lovely. I'm honestly glad to see you well and happy, and I am surprised to see that your wife looks remarkably like me. Albeit softer and maybe prettier. Or not, I can't tell for sure. You, on the other hand, look older than both of us, and quite a bit heavier than you once were. How is that possible? Is it strange that I haven't thought to look you up until now, some 20 years later? For certainly you meant everything to me for a brief moment in time. My sun rose and set on you. You were a constant heartbeat up until your replacement by another Random 80's Rock Dude. And then I guess I just forgot. But rest assured that you were special. You were my first, and a woman always remembers her first. I remember seeing you leaning against the elevator in Danceteria and thinking that life was finally getting on course. I remember your English accent and how it felt absolutely imperative at the time to land a British boyfriend. I remember your red, white, and blue shirt, your top hat, and your skinny legs and perfectly torn jeans. I remember your sweet smile and your even sweeter nature. I remember that you embodied everything I thought New York was supposed to bring. And I remember paying for all of the drinks. I remember that to my immense dismay, you were completely uninterested in me romantically and instead dove immediately for my blonde friend Julie. She a pug nose, poor sense of style, and barely marginal interest in all things rock and roll. I was the one with the custom-made leather pants, the aching passion for Aerosmith, the deep suffering necessary to understand a musician's heart, and of course, the perfectly beat-up vintage top hat. It was so obvious that we were meant to be, and yet you could not see me as anything other than a pal. It was both infuriating and excruciating. I remember how your ears stuck out when I helped you dye your hair dark brown at your manager's house. You were homeless, of course, and sleeping on her couch. I was jealous that she had a real purpose in your life. And all these years later, those same sticking out ears were the means by which to recognize you through cyberspace. By the way, I couldn't help noticing that you have that troll Sasha in your friend list. She always did chase after my boys. It's good to see she finally got ahead of me for once. She looks even crappier in middle age than I could have hoped. Has her head expanded? I remember when you took me to get my first tattoo. You had that killer skull with, yes, a top hat, so it was obvious that you were a tattoo expert. You sat with me while I grimaced, and I got my panther, and it was a truly great day. Remember how we paid for it in Quaaludes? I didn't have the courage to try one. It just felt cool to buy, hold, and hand out drugs, like Bonnie and Clyde, but with totally awesome tattoos. I remember going with you on your date with that rich model. God, that was painful. But you were, as always, completely oblivious, and I, a glutton for punishment, was right there hailing and probably paying for the cab. That girl was so tedious. Her hair was short, and she didn't know anything about music. But her deluxe apartment on Fifth Avenue was amazing, especially because I was sleeping on a floor at the time. I wonder if it's still there. I remember fucking your brother, another random 80s rock dude, because it was the closest I could get to you. He was grim-tempered and just pounded away for what seemed like hours. Then he got mad because that talentless pounding didn't render me orgasmic. I was worried that he would tell you I was bad in bed. I'm sure that he did. But I remember that it was never really about having sex with you. It was about merging with you, consuming you, becoming the other half of you. I idolized you, or at least the image I had created of you. You were just so cool, like a rock and roll bird, like a baby Keith Richards created out of steamy New York air, especially for me. I watched your long, slender fingers as you tapped them in time to T-Rex, and I felt so happy just to sit in the room. I thought you were the answer to my rock and roll prayers, and I never once considered that you were just as dumb as me. And it certainly never dawned on me that I was the answer to my rock and roll prayers. And finally, when it became apparent even to me that you would, in your own breezy English way, never truly notice me, no matter how super rock I looked and sounded, or no matter how many pairs of custom leather pants or top hats I owned, I moved on to the next random 80s rock dude, of which I have to admit now, there were more than a few. And that brings us up to the present, connecting over the internet. Did you notice that I became a rock star? Dude, I am so much more famous than you. Yeah. Did you notice that I blog? Did you notice my hot younger boyfriend? Did you notice that I'm keeping myself pretty well preserved? It's all there laid out for you, but I get the feeling that you haven't looked and surely never will. It's okay though, it's all good and none of that matters now. I'm just so happy that Sasha looks like shit.